All right, here's the results of our poll. You can see the majority of what type of Zoomer are you? 45%, the one without the camera on. 24%, the one walking around the house during the meeting. 19%, the one who's always talks. 14%, the one making funny faces, and the one who just woke up, 9%. A pretty even mix of early and night owls we have. Definitely the coffee drinkers, 73 to 27%. And 3/4 of us are savers. Great. Well, welcome back to ACA and welcome to business session number 2. Let's begin with prayer. Dear Lord, we are thankful for all you do for each one of us and for Ohio Conference. We are grateful to be together today, even though we would have preferred to be together in person. I pray that you will bless our time together, and we ask for guidance as we work through the agenda of ACA today. Amen. Next, I'm going to turn it back over to Dick, our conference minister, who will now give an update regarding our visioning that we've been doing and also some anti-racism training. So Dick.
I hope you're able to all get outside and grab a little bit of fresh air and a bite to eat. As I shared at our recent delegate cluster meetings, there's no doubt that this past year has been difficult for all of us, personally, as individual churches and as a conference of churches. Just the fact that we have not been able to meet in person at just about every level has presented its challenges. And yet, as difficult as the year has been, we have also witnessed God's blessings in many ways. Almost every single one of our congregations was able to adapt to meeting virtually, either as a standalone service or in a combination hybrid model. That is a tribute to the many gifted pastors, leaders, and members of our congregations throughout conference. Many of our churches have reported that they had people taking part in their virtual services that didn't take part in their in-person services. I think we have learned that offering virtual services in the future, along with our in-person services, provides us with an opportunity to do outreach that we hadn't thought of before. Many of our churches were able to adapt to new ways of doing ministry through the opportunities that presented themselves because of the pandemic, whether it be serving community meals or staffing at food pantries or offering drive-in services and on and on. Financial giving for those special needs, giving to our congregations, and giving to conference has stayed pretty much the same, and in even some cases increased over the past year. A great example of the generosity of God and God's people. On the flip side, just about every one of our pastors and congregations has reported that it has been a very tiring and draining year, as well as a difficult year to try and discern God's vision for the future. It seems like the best we could do was just stand still. And I think that is okay, at least for a little while. It's a good reminder to all of us that God is God and we are not. It's a reminder of the words of the psalmist of Psalm 46, speaking on God's behalf. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted upon the earth. And then the psalmist concludes, the Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. It is important for us to acknowledge that God is with us just as much in the difficult seasons of our life as he is in the pleasant seasons. As a conference, we have tried to balance God's call to remain still with continuing to move forward with where we felt God has been leading us over the past several years. The gathered piece of our Gathered and Sent initiative has been quite difficult, just to the fact that we haven't been able to meet in person, causing us to cancel what we thought was going to be our first family missional event scheduled for last July at Bluffton University, as well as many of our other in-person events. And yet we have gathered virtually as much as possible. We have continued our missional focus, the Sent piece of the Gathered and Sent initiative, evidenced by the great teaching that we have received these past couple days by Brad Roth. A little bit later, somebody from our missional planning team will be sharing what things we have going on in the future. The Leadership Development Resource Team continued to meet virtually throughout 2020 and here at the beginning of 2021, trying to discover new ways to raise up pastoral leaders from our own congregations. The team has put together a list of seminaries and educational institutions, degrees, and programs that are available to people at differing education and background levels who might be feeling called to pastoral ministry. Throughout our contacts, we have developed and/or strengthened relationships with several institutions. One of the other things that the Leadership Development Resource Team thought was important to do was try and discover what barriers still might exist in Ohio Conference for somebody that be feeling called to pastoral ministry. One of those that we wanted to look at was for women that are called to pastoral ministry. The team sent out a survey to all of our pastors and congregational leaders to see if being a woman is still a challenge in Ohio Conference. We received feedback from 85 individuals representing 27 of our more active congregations. Our leadership team will be issuing a more detailed report in the near future, but we did discover that as a conference, we have grown in our acceptance of women in leadership, especially in certain positions. But there is still room for more growth. This past year has not only presented ourselves with a viral pandemic, it has also exposed us to the reality that racism still exists in our country today. As a conference of mostly white people, we have taken steps to educate ourselves on the reality of racism. Hopefully, so we can learn about ourselves and to grow in our acceptance of people who are different than us. All of Ohio Conference's staff, the leadership team, and the ministry development team have been taking part in anti-racism training through widerstand.org, a training that was made available to Mennonite Church USA to all conferences and their leaders. I speak mostly for myself, but I also think I speak for many others that this has been a rather eye-opening experience. In a couple of different ways, the need for further education and dialogue regarding anti-racism has come from the grassroots of our pastors and their congregations. One example will be shared shortly is from a group of pastors in the Wayne County area. And the other example is a relationship that has started between Pastor Kevin Himes from Salem Mennonite Church in Kidron, a white pastor of an almost entirely white congregation, and Pastor Vicki Pruitt-Sorrells from Lee Heights Community Church in Cleveland, an African-American pastor of a congregation where African-Americans are in the majority, as well as both of their congregations. A few weeks ago, Mennonite Mission Network hosted a webinar where they interviewed both pastors, and they shared about their experience. If you didn't have an opportunity to watch it live, you can access it on Mennonite Mission Network's website. I would encourage you to do so. And it's very appropriately entitled, Speak the Truth in Love. As Pastor Vicki shared in the opening of our worship this morning, there is no shortage of challenges that has been presented to us over this past year. But as one of our other pastors has pointed out, that challenges are really just opportunities that God has presented us with. There is no shortage of ministry opportunities that God has presented us with to witness to the love of Jesus Christ as we begin to move to the other side of this COVID pandemic into the second half of 2021 and beyond.
Thank you, Dick. We are now going to show a short video prepared for us for ACA by Carla Minter of the Mennonite Mission Network.
"2020 pandemic, God help us, God with us. The Word became flesh and lived among us. In him was life, and the life was the light of all people." Ohio Conference on Mission, a missional people, all people on mission, a missional conference with vision, God's kingdom vision, from rural and urban, big and bigger, smaller and small, gathered and sent, feeding the hungry, loving your neighbor, making disciples, loving the church, all peoples, all places, the church, Christ's body to the ends of the earth, Brad Roth's ecclesial culture, Mission Network, on mission, a missional vision, local and global, God's kingdom vision, bringing healing and hope to those in need, all people, all places, the whole gospel of Jesus Christ in word and deed. MDI, making disciples who make disciples online, now in 10 countries, 121 leaders in training, becoming disciples who make disciples, hundreds, to the ends of the earth. 60 mission workers on mission in 50 countries, being the church in all places, all peoples. 150 is still serving through youth venture, service adventure, Mennonite voluntary service, SOUP, and DOOR. Despite the pandemic, programs, partnerships, adapting and thriving. Your support makes a difference. Thank you, Ohio Conference, for your prayers, partnership, and dollars. I thank you. Mission Network, Ohio Conference, together on mission, a missional people, all people on mission, a missional vision, God's kingdom on earth as in heaven. 2020, God help us. God with us, Emmanuel, God with us.
Okay, I will now be turning it back over to Dick, and he will have an update regarding the membership guidelines. You may have been hearing news about that, so Dick's going to have an update for us.
As I just closed my last section by saying that there is no shortage of ministry opportunities that God has presented us with to witness to the love of Jesus Christ as we begin to move to the other side of this pandemic into later 2021 and beyond. One of those opportunities is how we process and discern the anticipated resolution from MCUSA to retire its membership guidelines. And so I would like to take a little time and share an update both from myself and the Ohio Conference leadership team. In 2001, Ohio Mennonite Conference became a Conference of Mennonite Church USA when the denomination that we had been a part of, Mennonite Church, merged with the General Conference denomination. In order to merge the two denominations together, membership guidelines were established. Actually, they were established in 1999 with Part 1 and Part 2, but they failed to gain enough approval due to levels of acceptance, differences in the level of acceptance of LGBTQ persons into the life of congregations. In light of that, they added a Part 3, which was entitled Clarification on Some Issues Related to Homosexuality and Membership. Parameters were created in Part 3, which forbid pastors from holding credentials in a conference of Mennonite Church USA from performing a same-sex covenanted ceremony. If they did, such action would be grounds for review of their credentials by their area conference's credentialing ministry body. And so with the addition of Part 3 to the membership guidelines, the delegate bodies of both denominations gathered together in Nashville in 2001, and they approved the merger by almost 90%. Since that time, people, congregations, and conferences across MCUSA have interpreted and implemented the membership guidelines in different ways. Some interpreted them as a temporary agreement, which was written and agreed to mostly for the purpose of the merger and the birth of MCUSA, thus being time sensitive. Others interpret them as a binding covenant for an unlimited time, highlighting both the covenant and the commitment language that is contained therein. Complicating matters, the two denominations which merged held different views on polity as related to who made decisions. As a general rule, the General Conference gave its churches much more autonomy in decision-making, while Mennonite church congregations gave more authority to their conferences in decision-making. But it's important to note that throughout their history, Anabaptists and Mennonites have never been top-down and authoritative in decision-making outside of congregations, or perhaps a cluster of congregations, or in some cases, a conference of congregations. Even in conferences which give more authority to the conference and where congregations hold to a common confession of faith, congregations have acted differently on such matters as the level of acceptance of members who have served in the military, those who are divorced and or remarried, and women in pastoral leadership, just to name a few. Much has happened in our society and the church over the past 20 years, especially regarding the level of how much LGBTQ plus persons are accepted into the life of our congregations, including for some conferences, the approval of pastors performing same-sex marriages. And in a few instances, this has also included granting ministerial licenses to pastors who are in a same-sex covenanted relationship. Recognizing the differences in theological interpretations in congregations and conferences across MCUSA, the delegates at the 2015 Assembly in Kansas City approved two resolutions, one entitled On the Status of the Membership Guidelines, and the other was entitled Forbearance in the Midst of Differences. In order to exercise forbearance in the midst of differences, the one on the membership guidelines resolved that the delegate body would not entertain any changes to the membership guidelines for at least 4 years. 4 years later, at the MCUSA Delegate Assembly in Kansas City, once again in 2019, the delegates recommended to the leadership and the executive board of MCUSA that they move forward in discerning a way to process what to do with the membership guidelines. Since that time, an advisory group was formed. They met together and they offered recommendations. Mennonite Church USA's Constituency Leaders Council, otherwise known as CLC, with representatives from all 16 area conferences and Mennonite Church USA's agencies, spent time at two of its most recent biannual meetings discerning and offering feedback to the executive board. At its late January meeting of this year, the executive board of MCUSA made the decision to bring a resolution to the CLC to retire the membership guidelines. And this is the anticipated timeline. And I believe we have it on a PowerPoint. And I want to highlight anticipated. This past January, the executive board decided to bring a resolution to the CLC. On March 12th and 13th, which is already next weekend, the CLC will be meeting to discuss the resolution and offer feedback to the executive board. Ohio Conference's representatives on the CLC are myself, Lynn Miller, and Paula Snyder-Belusik. A month from now, on April 16th and 17th, the executive board will be meeting to decide a final resolution to be brought to the delegate body. And then, most likely, it won't be until spring of next year, spring of 2022, which will be the earliest that the MCUSA delegate body will be able to gather in person to vote on the resolution. It is important for Ohio Conference delegates and congregations to understand that MCUSA's membership guidelines only deal with the membership of a conference to MCUSA. It has nothing to do with how a congregation determines its own membership. And it doesn't also relate to a conference determining a congregation's membership. Ohio Conference's delegates made a decision at the annual conference assembly in 2016, and it is currently in our Constitution, that a congregation does not have to be a member of MCUSA to be a member of Ohio Conference. Ohio Conference is one of several conferences of MCUSA which continues to humbly hold to a more traditional understanding of Scripture as it relates to sexuality, and especially that God intends marriage to be a covenant between one man and one woman for life. We continue to hold our credentialed ministers accountable to the resolution passed by the Ohio Conference delegate body in 2015 that they will not perform a same-gender ceremony, and that conference will not recognize a congregation's request to credential a pastor in a same-sex relationship. At Ohio Conference's annual conference assembly in 2017, the delegate body approved a resolution proposed by the leadership team that included a statement that we will continue our affiliation with Mennonite Church USA. 3 changes would trigger a review of that affiliation. 1, a substantive change in the confession of faith. 2, a substantive change in the membership guidelines of MCUSA. 3, a change in policy or practice at the national level that would require Ohio Conference to recognize the credentials of pastors who have performed same-sex marriages or who are involved themselves in a same-sex relationship. While there is currently no suggestion for change to numbers 1 or 3 on that list, the leadership team of Ohio Conference believes that the actual retirement of the membership guidelines would be a substantive change that would trigger a review of our affiliation with MCUSA. As the leadership team of Ohio Conference, we see our affiliation with MCUSA as more than one issue. Over the past several years, we have heard many pastors and members of our congregations question how well Ohio Conference fits with where Mennonite Church USA is at today. We have also heard some pastors and congregational members express appreciation for MCUSA. In anticipation of MCUSA's membership guidelines being retired sometime in 2022, and in keeping with the resolution passed by our delegate body in 2017, the Ohio Conference leadership team suggests the following path to begin discerning what future affiliation with a denomination might look like. And what we are suggesting is a two-step path. One, in the upcoming months, Ohio Conference leadership team, with input from our pastors and delegates, hopefully we can do it in person, will continue to clarify our own identity, purpose, mission, and God's vision for us in the future. And two, we will discern together what it means for Ohio Conference to affiliate with a denomination today and what we want that affiliation to look like in the future. We want to make clear that these actions are in no way indicative of what we might decide as a conference regarding future affiliation with MCUSA if a resolution to retire its membership guidelines were to pass in 2022. Implied in trying to discern God's will on matters is that we come into the discernment with as little bias as possible and no preconceived favor of the result. We allow the Holy Spirit to lead us in the entire process, which includes any decision or decisions to be made. On behalf of the leadership team, our prayer is that as a conference, we will continue to be faithful to who we feel that God is calling us to be as we interpret Scripture and discern the Holy Spirit's leading together. And so we're going to go into a breakout time. And what we would like you to do is we would like some feedback from you, specifically regarding the proposal from the leadership team about the path to move forward. One, continue to clarify our own identity, mission, purpose, and future vision. And two, discerning together what denominational affiliation looks like. And we would like somebody from your group to take notes, and please send those notes to Judy King at our office sometime later today or in the next couple of days. And then after our breakout room discussion, we will have time for any questions and answers that you might have.
Thank you, Dick. So we will be sent to our breakout rooms momentarily. A reminder to accept the confirmation to go into the room. And for some of you that maybe did log out during lunch, you're probably going to be put into a different room, and I apologize for that. So go ahead, and we'll see you back in about 10 minutes. So hopefully you had some good conversation in those 10 minutes. We're now going to spend the next 10 minutes with a Q&A time regarding what Dick just presented and perhaps even the conversations that you just had in your breakout times. So use your chat feature. And if you have any questions or comments for us, that would be great. So go ahead and use the chat feature right now. And please have someone, oh, I'm sorry, as you record them, again, just a reminder, send those minutes over to Judy at some point in the next couple days. So questions, comments, put them in the chat. So we have a question, Dick. And you're muted right now, Dick. So
Thanks. The question, I lost my chat. Can you clarify, does question number 2 mean discerning affiliation with Mennonite Church USA specifically, or with any denomination? I think the question that we want to clarify right now or over the next year is, what does affiliation really mean, or what do we understand it to mean today? I think there's a lot of different expectations of what we thought it meant when the two denominations merged. And so I think we want clarity about what we expect from a denomination, or what does it mean really to even connect with a denomination. I think we want clarity about that before we even start try to make a decision. Is Mennonite Church USA who we still want to affiliate with in the future, if that's helpful. From Jeff Roth, what is our purpose? What brings life, not conflict? Yes, we are really aware of that. And we want to be careful with that moving forward as we discern. We realized that several years ago, most of us had the life sucked out of us just in the processing that we all did. But that doesn't mean we still have to process and discern things moving forward. So we need to find a way to do that in a way that doesn't suck the life out and gives us life. Would have liked more time as a group. Lucas, I think that's a good question on, I would love for someone who has strong ties with MCUSA to express the benefit of being affiliated with a denomination. I clearly see the benefit of conference from personal experience. I don't necessarily know that it needs to be somebody even that has really strong ties to MCUSA. I think there are lots of benefits of being affiliated with a denomination. I mean, Mennonite Church USA brings a lot of things to us. It helps us with our credentialing of ministers. Mennonite Mission, lots of good organizations. Mennonite Mission Network, Everence is an organization of Mennonite Church USA. So we do get lots of benefits from Mennonite Church USA. That's a good feedback.
Dick, Geraldo Nunes here.
Yes.
I think we are on the right path when you are working, like to include, like, work on the racism. It's very important. The grants that we're giving to churches, we're seeing good projects from there. I guess we need to just like try to enforce more a relationship between churches, and we're doing this here in Eastern Ohio with the 5-6 churches plus Open Arms. I would like to see in the future a way to help Braço em Braço over there in Lima to develop more. Like, I guess it's projects that give us life.
Yes.
We need to concentrate on that and be working on everything else, but not let them suck all the time, all the thinking, and that we start to discuss too much, fight between us.
Yes. Thanks, Geraldo. Bill Seymour's comment was very good. The Corinthian plan for clergy and church employees is through Mennonite Church USA. Breakout room, Doug's there asked, did you update the conference vision statement? That's what we are working on now. And that's why we have that first part about we want to continue to work on our own identity and where we see God leading us over the course of the next few years. That's where we want to move coming up. Sean's comment is good too. We come with a history. We come with our history as being part of Mennonite Church. We came to Mennonite Church USA, and it's a lot of it is about relationships and a shared journey. It seems that Mennonite Church USA has stated that each conference should function autonomously. Has Ohio Conference's posture and or documentation reciprocated that movement? That's one of the things we want to address moving forward as well. There definitely is and I'm not sure if it's a change as it is an acknowledgement of the way Mennonite Church USA's polity has been, in that it gives most of its authority to conferences. And so in addition to some of the other things that they're working on moving forward is they want to clarify that so conferences have most of the authority throughout Mennonite Church USA, and that also includes the licensing and credentialing of pastors.
Dick, did you see, and I'm sorry if I missed it, Jacob Dobson's regarding Doug Zare's question?
Yes, about the vision. Yes,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Dean just added something I think is important regarding our identity and our vision.
Yes.
In our mission statement, yeah.
I think that's the big question for us, Dean, moving forward. Yeah, well, thank you. Kind of like the eye test to see if you can read the.
Dick, do you think it's important to name that we have built up a lot of trust and relational capital over the past several years, thanks to God's help, and that Lord willing, will be a help to us as we discern this together. It had been so hard in 2014, 2015, and I just feel like the Lord has been with us, and we journeyed together over a lot of ground. Just wanted to name that. I'm grateful for that journey we've had together.
Thank you, Jacob. And some of the other pastors have highlighted that in our meetings, in that I think we all realize that went down in 2014, 2015 in Ohio Conference was not looking even at anything at MCUSA. What went on in Ohio Conference was not good. And so what the question some have asked is, so what have we learned from that we can use moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Well, thank you, everyone, for all your comments and questions. Of course, we'll have the full chat history from today, and as we move to the next, as we make decisions as a leadership team for the process, this is invaluable to help us of what we're planning to do.
And you can email any of us on the leadership team or send feedback.
Yeah, right.
We want to encourage that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you, everyone. We are now going to have another missional story, anti-racism from the grassroots. We're going to show a video from the Wayne County congregations and how they have worked together regarding anti-racism.
Hi, we are a group of amorphous pastors from Wayne County, Ohio Conference churches. And we've been asked to do a missional story today because over this last year, largely in response to the killing of George Floyd, but this was work that we had thought about prior. We created a series of 6 videos with a discussion guide called Series on Solidarity, and our conference minister asked us to tell the story a little bit. We're not going to talk too much about how that all happened, but the essence of it is we were in a circle a few times to talk about how we might respond toward racial healing and digging out some racism in our own places and selves. When David Hargrave and Geraldo Nunes came to us with a few ideas. And after a bunch of discussion, we arrived at, hey, let's create some videos. And Ohio Conference said, hey, let's help you pay for those. And that brought us to where we are. Doug, I'll ask you to answer this question. How have these videos been used?
Well, the whole design of the videos is to be used in small group discussions. So some of us very concerned about the racial tensions that we're aware of and feel. And so we want our people to talk about these kinds of issues. So some of that's still being tested in places. So leadership people are looking at videos and determining how to use them in their small groups. And
so what this group has done for us at our church, though, has also springboarded additional racial reconciliation ministries. So what I see happening in our context is this helped lay a foundation for me to go back to my congregation and begin some other things. And actually, I want to wait to incorporate these into church life when I know I'll have more of a critical mass that can engage in the videos. So there's a purposeful waiting there to make sure that the impact, the message is not lost.
We as Open Arms, we are using these videos. We distribute to our board members. They are watching all the 6 videos, and we start to have a conversation about that, because we really want that we have a good understanding, a good grip about racism and how can we help this situation.
If I talk about the blessings of this project, I think probably the first was the impact that it had on our relationship with each other, just processing and discussing this topic. So that's been, I think, a tremendous blessing. And then there's a Christian school that the videos were used in a chapel, and it promoted one of the, I think, benefits of these videos is those conversations, opening the door for conversations about some challenging and sensitive things. And so the school that played those videos, there have been subsequent conversations with the teachers and with some parents from the school and with that board, school board. So I think some of the benefit has been processing the videos and then the deepening of our relationships amongst each other.
I would like to add, Bill, something in what Dave is saying, because I shared this with our group of pastors. 15 years ago when I came here, it was really tough for me to adapt, you know, to blend on the Mennonite culture, the Mennonite group. And it was a tough road, really hard for me. But now, like Dave said, it's helping us to know each other better, to you know, get us more together. And now I really feel that I'm not doing this work by myself.
We showed these in the Sunday school, in a couple of classes at Orville, and in the one that I attend, I don't lead, I just attend. One person in the class at the beginning shared in a very kind way, I'm not sure I get any of this. Like, I don't see it. I live in an isolated place and I don't see it. And at the end, after lots of conversation, this person shared, oh, I get it now. I understand. Well, I don't know that he understands everything, right? But I understand a whole lot more, and I do get that there's racism that we need to work at and get out. So I don't know. For us, that was a victory.
Probably all of us have had to deal with some significant amount of pushback, and so I think that was experienced at the school with a lot of concern from parents and some other people saying, why are you showing these videos? I've had that in my congregation and discussions. So I think, I don't know if that's the question you were asking, Bill, but just to mention that, yeah, there's been some great things, some breakthroughs and kind of aha moments, but there's also been those moments of people questioning why we're doing this.
At Worcester Mennonite, we have a member of our congregation who does advocacy work with a group of alumni at a local Christian school in the area of working against racism. And she was feeling very discouraged. And these videos came at a season that I think was helpful, because she saw, okay, there's another group
from the community that cares about this, that's advocating also. And then we were also able to meet with her and hear a little bit of her story and then share our passion and give support and prayer for her. And so for me, that was a huge victory and a real encouragement.
Probably one of the things that causes me to be most hopeful is the impact that this is having and can have and will have on the coming generations. So since this conversation started before the videos were released, I sat down and shared them with my family, our children, and my girls and our children feel a lot of this social tension. And to know that there are a group of pastors that are dialoguing and engaging in this with their father, and that there is an avenue to, a positive avenue to discuss these things, it created a movement of hope and peace. And so I anticipate that growing within our congregation and within my home. So I'm very hopeful, but vice versa. I think as each of our children are exposed to and think about these things in a healthy and in a godly way, it gives a lot of optimism for the future.
Well, hope you found that encouraging as I did. We are now going to take another break. You should stay connected during this time, and we'll come back together at 1:30 for our third and final session. We will be taking communion together during the next session, the last session. Therefore, please have your communion elements with you at the start of this session. We'll see you back by 1:30.